Now, Puerto Rican native Marisela Marrero has certainly come a long way since her dad was killed about 28 years ago this week when she was just 8 years old. Now, after her dad, a Secret Service agent at the time, died in the line of duty, her life took an amazing turn that has brought her here to Boston, where she currently works as a top ER doctor. Now, to share with us her story, we have invited la doctora Marisela Marrero. Buenos días.
Buenos días y gracias, Alberto, por la invitación.
Yep. Now, full disclosure, okay? I've known you now for how, 10, 11 years, right?
At least,
Yeah,
yes.
at least. I never knew this story. I never knew this part about you until I read an article in the Lynn Item. I want to give them credit. A couple days ago, on New Year's Eve, because it was the anniversary of your dad's passing away. So take me through that. 28 years ago, you were 8 years old. What happened?
Yeah, so basically my father had been working for the Secret Service pretty much all his life, and that was actually the year when he turned 50 when he was going to retire, and his plan was to actually start a security company. And what happened was his birthday was New Year's Day, so we always celebrated it on New Year's Eve. And that New Year's Eve of 1986, there was a fire in Puerto Rico, an unfortunate tragedy in the DuPont Plaza Hotel where many, many people died. I think the actual number was 96. And my father was a counterfeit expert for the Secret Service. So he was called because at the same time they were questioning about counterfeit money in the casino. So he went to do that on his day off, and unfortunately the fire exploded and he was caught there. So obviously he never made it home that night.
Yeah. And you were 8 years old.
Correct.
At the time. Okay, so then now you were in a school because your dad was in the government, but then you get a letter, right, saying or saying that you could not continue in the school, right?
Correct. So we were unaware of that because, of course, if you're in the school, you don't know these things. But what happens is when you're the son or daughter of a federal employee, you have certain privileges. One of those is going to school, which is a military public school, but is for free. So when my dad passed away, even though it was in the line of duty, the law, as it is written, states that you cannot be actively in the school because the employee is not actively working.
Okay. So then, that's fine. So you're in school. Your mother was not happy with that.
No, we were not happy either.
No, but then you get a letter inviting you to the White House, right, for a special award for your dad, right? So take me to that day.
Yeah, correct. So basically James Baker, who I think was the Secretary of the Treasury at the time, had an award for my father for dying in the line of duty for the Secret Service, since the Secret Service is part of the Department of Treasury, or was at the time. So we went to Washington, D.C., and we had a trip where we went to the White House, and again, I was very young, with my mother and my two brothers and a Secret Service agent, and we met both Ronald Reagan and President Bush.
Right.
Or Vice President
at that point was Vice President.
Correct.
And your mother had this plan. They had told her not to do it, in her broken English, to tell Vice President at the time, Bush, your situation, right? And she told him.
Of course, yeah. Being a typical Puerto Rican woman, driven, even though her English was very limited, she took him aside and she told him what was happening with the school and that we were, unfortunately losing our education, even though my dad had dedicated his life to working with, detail with the president, the Pope, and all sorts of other amazing people. Right.
So then, let's fast forward a little bit. You get a call, the attorneys for Mr. Bush called, and eventually a special bill was passed that was then signed into law by President Reagan, letting you go back to school, right?
That's correct. So basically, because of my mother's efforts, Bush asked her to write letters to him about what was going on in Puerto Rico, and she did for a long time. And in fact, he would call her from time to time to update her with what was going on with the independent bill, which, if you know anything about bills, they're very, very difficult to pass when they're an independent bill. So a lot of people said that will never happen. It's a bill for 3 people in Puerto Rico. But of course, that did not happen, thankfully, and Bush really pushed for it. So it was all his work and my mother's.
Right. So then because of that, you were able to go on to further your education.
Correct.
And then you got accepted up here, up north, right?
Correct.
So tell me, now let's fast forward to your studies here.
Yeah. So because I went back to the school, it was really one of my science teachers, who's a Navy officer. He basically was the one who pushed me to come to the States, and that's why I applied to Yale, and that's why I came here. And after Yale, I came to Boston to Harvard.
Yep. Now, coincidentally, this mentor of yours, his last name was also Bush.
Correct.
So there was 2 Bushes that at that point had a major impact in your life. Okay.
Yes.
So then you come back here, you study to be a doctor, you go to Yale, then you go to Harvard
Medical school.
Medical School, right? You graduate, and then what do you do?
So I wrote him a pretty extensive letter.
Bush, right?
Yeah,
President
yeah.
Bush now. Now
Yeah,
he was president.
correct. And it was a very extensive letter. He was already done because this was in 2000. Okay. And I wrote him maybe a page and a half of explaining him the whole story that I just went through with you. And I put my information. I invited him to my graduation, even though I knew none of those things would probably happen. But I still wanted him to know that I was very grateful for what he did for me and my family. Not to mention that I went to Yale, which of course, if you know, he also is a Yaley. So one day during the summer, he did not attend my graduation, of course, but while I was in Puerto Rico during my vacation, I was driving to my uncle's house in Bayamón, and I get a call on my phone, and I pick up, and
it was a private number, right? You thought about it a couple times.
I didn't know if I should pick up, but I did, and I heard the accent, and I already knew that it was him, and I almost crashed my car. I just stopped, and I said, I can't believe this is the president who's calling me on my cell phone. And
you had a 10-minute conversation with our 41st President Bush. What did you guys talk about?
Well, my first comment, which I repeated multiple times, was, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this is happening. And his response to me was, how could I have not called you after that letter that you sent me? Wow. That's the first thing he told me.
Amazing.
And he said, you really have lived the American dream, and I am so proud of you and what your family has done. And then we started talking. At that time, Ferrer, who was one of the governors from Puerto Rico, had died, and he was in his funeral because they were good friends. And he said, I was just in Puerto Rico at the funeral of my friend Ferrer. Do you know him? I said, no, I don't know him, but I know of him. So, and then he told me, I mean, he's a wonderful human being, and he said, I'm feeling like I have a little bit of a cold, and I've been sneezing. I might need an evaluation by a doctor. And I said, Mr. President, I will fly to Texas for free and take care of you for the rest of my life if I need to.
That's how grateful you are.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so now that was a great story. And again, I read that in the Lynn item and then online. But now tell me what you're doing now, because now you're giving a lot back to you. You are an ER doctor, and ER doctors burn out quickly. But you are thriving in it, and you enjoy it. You enjoy the pressure. I mean, tell me a little bit about what you're working and what kind of a pace that is.
Yeah, so I mean, the emergency room is a very active place to be. A lot of people now know about it from the movies, but and from TV and all the shows, but it's very active. There's a lot of life and death situations, but it's a lot of adrenaline, and I love it, and I absolutely feel that this is the only thing that I could have done to really feel like I'm giving back.
Is that you right there? And you, now, where is this? Where exactly is this?
So this is at Union Hospital, so I work 50-50 between Union Hospital and Salem Hospital in the North Shore, and this was taken outside of the Union Hospital emergency room where pretty much I live, and this is what I look like when I'm at work. So
you look almost the same. Yeah, absolutely. So again, a lot of folks who know you in the community are just finding out now because of this article. I saw it. Also, we reposted on Facebook.
Yeah.
We're going to put this link everywhere on Facebook and everywhere so people can find out, because I did not know. I've known you now, and I didn't know the story.
Yeah, it's a great story.
Yeah, it really, really is. Well, you know what? Thank you for coming by this morning and sharing it.
Thank you.
Wow, congratulations. Keep it up. I'm so proud of you now that I'm your friend.
Thank you, Alberto. I really
so
appreciate it.
I'm 1 degree of separation from President Bush. All right.
Yes, you are.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alberto.
All right. When we return, we'll chat to a couple of creative makeup artists who have used, speaking of social media, to grab people's attention and actually some business along the way. Their story right here next on Revista Hispana.